This has been one of the bleakest seasons I've ever known. There's been an enormous amount of hoaxing, and though it hurts me to say this, some of the hoaxing is of the best quality. This breaks my heart.
Tell us where, sorry? You go from restaurants to devices. Devices, yeah? Oh, what is up?
So we're here today with Michael Glickman. Thank you so that we could come and visit you. And maybe the first question I would like to ask you is, what is your impression of this year's season? How are things developing this year?
There's been an enormous amount of hoaxing, and though it hurts me to say this, some of the hoaxing is of the best quality, better than I had thought possible. This breaks my heart. But I also realize that at the end of the day, obviously, I speak to many people. At the end of the day, we are convinced more than ever that there is here a phenomenon of enormous importance and nobility and significance to humanity. And the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. And I believe we're moving into an era of enormous transformation. And it's natural in human affairs that the dark reaction becomes powerful when you gain ground with lightness of spirit. But when it happens, you don't like it. When it happens, it's not pleasant. And it happened this year.
So, what is it that makes the hoax formation this year different than in the other years?
They're better and more numerous. And more puzzling. And they raise enormous and very fundamental questions about less the nature of the crop circle phenomenon than the nature of mankind. What is so powerful in the spirit of so many people that they wish simply to pollute and destroy and befoul, and they're the thieves of joy. I mean, they are the equivalent, in my view, to young men who sit at computers and send random viruses out to people they don't know to fuck up their computer. They are the equivalent in spirit to teenagers who walk through car parks and scrape the paintwork of an unattended new car. What joy can you get from this?
Is it maybe jealousy?
I don't think so. I mean, I've been too close to this phenomenon for too long, and I've looked at and studied many of the young people who are involved in hoaxing, and I think I can say, for me, they are people who I would not offer a cup of tea in my home. Bless them. But they are uniquely of a certain type of rather disaffected young man, often from a disturbed family background. They often don't have real jobs. They rarely sustain a relationship with a woman, and this kind of mischief gets them a certain perverse attention which they're desperate for.
How long have you now been involved with this phenomena?
14 years.
So it started, I think, well, it started obviously hundreds of years ago, as we learned, but it started in...
No, it didn't.
No.
What makes you think it started hundreds of years ago?
Because we heard several accounts, and also there are old carvings, I think it's called, where those circles are shown. You don't think that's...
This is like going to Picasso's old studio and finding dots of paint and saying, this is the beginning of Cubism.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
I mean, they say there have been circles in the fields in the earlier part of the 20th century. There are stories. But this is really, as far as I'm concerned, the equivalent of shaking the brush out, you know. I mean, it's not important. This phenomenon started in the late 80s, this phenomenon. And to go back and look for earlier isolated circles is interesting but useless, a distraction. Just as to find rock carvings is useless. I mean, there is no real synchronicity. Humanity has produced repetitive shapes. What? Do you want me to say that the crop circle is evidence of an interest in ceramic dinner plate making because it's round? Or is the crop circle evidence of an interest in automotive transport because it's the same as the wheel? You know? I mean, there are all kinds of people who look at these posters and say, oh, we've seen that shape on the doorway of an Etruscan church. Well, hey, that shape is not unique, you know. You find a simple shape, you'll find it repeated historically around the world, and you need a degree of discernment to understand what is relevant and what's not relevant. By and large, I think this stuff is totally irrelevant.
So you started to investigate this phenomenon 15 years ago. That's
I
also
started to experience the phenomenon.
okay.
I would hesitate to join the gang of people who claim they're investigators. I'm an experiencer.
Okay.
And I have a few ideas, a few crazy ideas.
What was it that got you interested in the phenomenon so that you stick to it for all those years?
Look, fundamentally, with the benefit of hindsight, I believe I signed up many years ago. I believe, certainly I feel so comfortable now in my activity. It seems everything I did before was leading to this. What overtly made me interested was I'd been an architect And so I had a background in design and number and geometry, and I was very interested in this. I was also interested in, obviously, how things were made in the real world. So this was an interest to me. I'd also been interested in film, and I had some experience in special effects and how that was done. And above all, I think, like everybody, I was interested in the inexplicable, the strange, the unknown. This was very attractive to me. And then when I went in my first circle up the road in 1990 at Alton Barnes, I never really got out. I mean, that was the change of my life.
Okay. So destiny comes to mind then.
What?
Destiny is a word that comes to mind if I listen to you.
I suppose.
Um,
Whether or not it was destiny, I am the happiest man on this planet. I am the most fulfilled human being. Totally comfortable in what I do.
You're also preparing a book right
Yeah.
now. Do you want to talk about it already, or is it
No.
But it will be about the
Cropcircles.
Oh, that's a surprise.
It's a very intense book. I've been working on it for 14 years, and
So immediately after you came in touch with this phenomenon, or you decided...
I didn't know, but I was methodically taking notes about everything. All my lectures, I started lecturing about this subject in 1990, and all my lectures are recorded. I've just got a comprehensive archive, and it's very interesting going back, and it's like archaeology. I'm digging up my evolving position in relation to this. I find it very rewarding.
So the book is going to be quite big, I think, quite thick.
No, because I'm quite lazy.
Okay. Well, that's good, because I'm lazy too, and then it's easier to read.
Yeah.
So back to this year's circles. What do you think are the most interesting that you've seen this year? And then maybe on to the most interesting you've ever seen.
This is a very difficult question.
I'm sorry, I seem to pose a lot of difficult questions today.
It's too soon for me to speak about this. I mean, I would say right away that the West Kennet labyrinth, the octagram, is a remarkable formation. But certainly, I don't mind being caught out. I don't give a shit. I know that there are many people out there who would like to hear me rave about a formation which they knew they had made. This would take my head like that of a gigantic reindeer and put it on their wall as a trophy. And I don't give a shit. If that's what they want to do. Nor do I mind if I make a mistake. But by and large, I've found this year's circles, by and large, depressing. And it will be too soon for me to say. I liked this octogram, this labyrinth thing. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know.
What would you say in the past were the formations that were most impressive, or whatever to say?
Come on. Hey, look at it.
It's all of them.
I mean, they're fantastic, you know. I mean, every one of these, I drew every one of these by hand.
Oh.
And every one of them represents, this wall is like an autobiography, really. And
So these posters were done by yourself and
Alan Brown, yeah.
who's a mathematician?
No, I told you already. You don't listen.
No.
He's not a mathematician.
He's not. I thought
No.
you said he is.
I mean, look, no.
Okay.
I mean, I think one of the things I am most grateful for, I have an enormous gift, and I'll tell you what my gift is. I did not have a scientific education. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're discovering increasingly that what a scientific education does is, number one, amputate your courage, number two, amputate your imagination, and it encloses you in a very high concrete wall. There are no important crop circle researchers who were damaged in this way. You saw how powerful Alan Brown's work is, and he never studied mathematics, which is his great gift.
But I've been in Glastonbury last year. He did very interesting work analyzing them from a mathematical point of view.
From a mathematical point of view, but without the doctrinaire. I mean, look, we all think that we're under assault by fundamentalisms. The biggest fundamentalism in the world, of course, is scientism, which makes Al-Qaeda look like a garden party. I mean, scientism rules our lives, and in many ways ruins our lives. And there are many parts of human existence which have simply been sliced off and said, not of value. We can't measure it. We can't replicate it. Therefore, it does not exist. Crop circles don't exist. UFOs don't exist. Love doesn't exist. Art doesn't exist. Scientism has made the world bleak and limited. It's made humanity. It has encouraged humanity to live within limits. I digress. I'm sorry.
There have been a lot of people doing work on crop circles and analyzing the phenomena from all point of views. I think one of which are very interested are also those that look at the crop itself and how it is changed. What do you think about those analytic methods?
Look, I think we're back into the thing of science again. And, so, you know, we can divide the researchers into two groups. The pursuers of mechanism and the pursuers of meaning. I believe the circles bear enormous meaning. And I also believe that the circle makers are able to put the crop circles down in 827 different methods. But we're like little boys who get a new toy and immediately want to unscrew it. How does it work? How does it work? Well, I think the work of Levelgood and Talbot in the nodes, 1991, 13 years ago, very important work. What has it taught us? What has it taught us?
Well, maybe it has brought some of those who might be called skeptics to have a closer look at it. Isn't that something positive?
I don't know that it ever did.
Yeah.
That's the old story. I don't know that it ever did. Mm-hmm. We're so concerned to read on television that an aspirin is clinically tested that's the way we rule our lives. So we found out what makes a corn bend, but we're faced with miracles, and we haven't got the stomach to look at the bigger picture and say, what can be the meaning of this? This really is like the scholar who says, I'm going to do a 5-year PhD thesis on Rembrandt. And then he comes back at the end and he says, he uses a number 6 brush. What? Excuse me. Right. I would offer the example of a scholar who says he's going to do a 5-year study of Rembrandt. And he comes back at the end, he says, I've got the secret. He used a number 6 paintbrush. Well, I think there are layers of meaning which are beyond the technology of how he applied the paint. There are layers of meaning in the crop circles which are beyond the physics of how the wheat bent over. But of course, a lot of people want to anchor themselves in mechanical reality, and they're obsessed with how does the wheat bend over. Well, fine. That's okay. I am interested. I don't give a hoot about how the wheat bends over. I'm very interested in how it bends over to form an annual display of consciousness stretching form. And you're not going to find that out by science. You're going to find that out by contemplation and wisdom and discernment and consciousness studies.
So what is the best way of someone who is now interested in the whole phenomena to, let's stay with the example, if you're interested in Rembrandt, you might go to galleries and look at the pictures and contemplate over them. Is this also the way you would approach the phenomenon?
Yeah. I think that if somebody has the remotest interest in this, they should come here in the summer, and they should jump into the water as though they were at a swimming pool, and just take in the whole experience, which is a pretty remarkable experience. See the formations, meet the people, talk. Go to the Glastonbury Symposium if you can, just to get immersal. And then they should start looking, reading.
Is it, we just entered the formation and it was a very beautiful experience. Would you say that this is also an important aspect if you approach it?
Yeah, of course it is. It is. You see, I now, because I become increasingly immobile, I don't go into circles. But I've been in hundreds, and I've got them. And the truth is, here, I'm absolutely at the center of things. I know when something arrives very quickly, and either somebody comes here with a digital or a video camera and shows me immediately, or else I get stuff sent through on the net, or I speak to people, so that I am as close as anybody who walks into the circles to the nature of a formation. But I must say, the personal experience is crucially important, I think. I mean, for me, one of the great enrichments has been the fact that since 1990, I've been drawing these formations by hand. And I've been obsessive about that. I would stare at pictures until my forehead would bleed, you know. I mean, I've spent hours and days and weeks drawing, and very often it wasn't right. You start again. I've done it very often.
You draw this by hand, or you use a computer? You draw it by hand?
Always. I did, but I mean, I now, I've virtually lost the use of my right hand, so I can't draw anymore. But I drew them by hand, and you see, what's very interesting is that the experience of going into a circle is an event. It becomes a life event, and it's very much to do with what was the shape of the circle, what was the weather, what was the landscape around, who were the people you met, how did you feel, and all that becomes a layer of memory around this event. Now, for me, I was very lucky because I simply went home with my notes, my measurements, I photographed, and I then spent hours, days at my drawing board. And this became another event. I took that event and I turned it into paper. And this was an enormous experience for me. I mean, I look at these drawings and I remember some of them were done in West Hampstead in London. Some of them were done in a rented house in Stanton, St. Bernard, down the road. Some of them were done in Milton, Lilbourne. Some of them were done in Santa Monica, California. Some of them were done here in Horton, Wiltshire. And every one of these symbols contains for me a multiple layering of meaning, which I hope in some sort of way has brought me closer and closer to an understanding of this phenomenon.
When looking at the media, I mean, there's all kind of crap, but that is just blown up until you can't see the skies anymore. Why is it that this phenomenon, which is interesting, beautiful, and which is a yearly event, is not in the media? I mean, maybe this is a stupid question, but I mean, I
mean, would you like to have been the newspaper editor who published the headline, "Earth is round, official"?
Yes.
Well, you would have been executed. Are you kidding? Would you have liked to have been the newspaper editor who published, "Heavier than aircraft can fly"? Now, no matter what you say, it took them 6 or 7 years. It was flying. There were photographs. Nobody would talk about it.
So is it...
Humanity is desperate, first for survival. They want just to survive. But a very close part of that is keeping things the same. And one of the biggest threats is change. Change sends ripples of horror through our world.
But if we look at our world, it's pretty much on the edge. We know that this is not sustainable development that we're doing.
It's going to collapse.
So, shouldn't change be welcomed? I mean, why is fear?
It's all very well for you to say shouldn't change be welcome. It's all very well for me. Speak to your mother, your grandmother, your uncle. They don't want change. No one wants change. They would like to improve that bit and that bit, but basically keep it all as it is. The last thing they want is the intervention of non-earthly intelligence, which proves to be massively more evolved and intelligent than we are. That would really rock the boat.
So you raised a good point. So you think that this is an intervention from outside?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Come on. I mean, why is it an intervention from the shop on the corner? Come on.
Well, there are people that think that this could be produced by ourselves, and then it's sort of energies that produce.
Bless them.
Okay. So
people can think what they like. It's what's called a security blanket. Do you know what a security blanket? Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people, like little kids, who walk around with the security blanket. They're all hoaxed. You know.
Yeah. Do we have any idea who is intervening here?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about this, or is it something that you would like everyone to find out for himself?
They're gonna find out for themselves. Like that is how they're gonna find out for themselves, and it's gonna be painful. I don't exactly know who it is, but it's from elsewhere, and it is, I believe, a group of I believe 11 non-terrestrial civilizations acting in federation entirely, uniquely for the good of this planet. And the crop circles are simply lubricating the axles of change. The change is inevitable. Our cousins up there are not the initiators of this change, but they are very much aware, firstly, that the change is already well advanced, and secondly, that we are here on Earth catastrophically unprepared for it. So I believe the crop circles are a way, really gently, of drawing us forward to the notion first that we're not alone. I think this is one of the most revolutionary and terrifying messages that we're going to have to eat, and we won't like it. We are not alone. And not only are we not alone, but our colleagues, our cousins, seem to be brighter and more evolved than we are.
Older?
More evolved. More evolved. So their civilization is substantially older. So the crises we now face about, do we take that door which leads to self-destruction, A, or do we take that door which leads to the possibility of a future, B? our society says, let's take A. Oh, what fun. Self-destruction. Like that. And they've already been through this hinge point in their developmental history millennia ago. And they have emerged through door B. And
they would like us to follow.
Well, yeah, they certainly would.
Are those civilizations, have they been with us for a long time, or is it just now that they have contacted?
They've been with us for a long time. I believe they are now making tentative approaches because they have to, because there's no time left. And they have behaved with enormous ethic, and they've stood off for many centuries, believing that they should not interfere. But we're now midway through a major shift, and it's going to be, as I say, it's going to be catastrophic. So I think they want to ease things as much as possible.
What do you expect to happen, and what's the timeline we're talking about here?
I think we're going to get tangible interspecies contact on the surface of this planet within 4 years, 5.
So tangible, it will be, we're landing and
yeah.
There's a lot of talk, and we constantly stumble over it, the year 2012. How do you think this is tying in here?
I think the year 2012 is very important. I think that will mark the end of a time shift, which we're already in. We've got another 8 years, and I think these 8 years are going to be increasingly interesting, increasingly tumultuous.
Difficult to think of being even more tumultuous, but
let me tell you, it's going to be breathtaking and difficult.
So, are these civilizations here to assure our survival? Can they do that, or are they just trying to ease the pain? I mean, what exactly is the goal?
I think they're trying to ease the pain. They're trying to ease the transition. We will survive. I mean, I think humanity, despite its own best efforts, is programmed to succeed. But I think we do need help now.
Now, this is not a very usual thing to say, of course. How did you learn about this?
I don't know. This is very difficult, and this is a question I always get. They say, how do you know? Please show me your references, your peer-reviewed journals, your laboratory tests. Not got any. I don't know. This has come as a result of immersing myself in these questions and coming forward with ideas which I believe in very powerfully. I have to accept the real possibility that I am barking mad, completely crazy. I have to confront that several times a day, and I've confronted this several times a day for several years. I believe absolutely in these ideas. I believe absolutely and without reservation in all I say. but I cannot support it. You know, I mean, you can support the facts that certain shampoos are good for your hair. They've been tested on rabbits' eyes or whatever, you know, but I'm speaking outside the framework of our conventional mechanical reality, and the only way to get outside it is to hypothesize and to speculate as reasonably as possible from as wide a base of information gathering as possible, and you put forward a hypothesis. Now, I can't guarantee it, but I swear I think it's right. I mean, look, here's the other thing. For 4 years, from 1998 to 2001, I correctly predicted the numerology of the following season. Many people didn't notice.
When you say numerology, what exactly?
Well, I mean, we had never had sevenfold geometry, and I predicted that would arrive in '98, and it did. We'd never had 11-fold. I predicted that would arrive in 2000, and it did. We'd never had 13-fold, and it arrived in a slightly strange form in 2001, then with more articulacy in 2003. Many people simply ignored it, and those who didn't ignore it presumed that I'd been visited by a white-robed figure or something, and I just said, no, if you're close to this and you work through it, you will see there is a sequence in the communication which allows you to predict and extrapolate the narrative. Mm-hmm. But much of it is intuitive information, or I don't see myself as a channeler. I do not receive channeled messages, but I do receive communications similar to channelings.
Just before you said that you believe that there are 11 different civilizations and that they will have tangible contact with us within the next 5 years. Again, I mean, how did you come to those? Or sooner?
Not late.
Not later. So there is a. I have to ask again. How did you come to those? How could you convince yourself that this is going to be the case, or that this is the case?
I've felt this for a long time. I've also felt for a while that 2004 was a crucial hinge point in these events, and several things have happened in 2004 which confirm my overall view. I mean, do you know about Robert in Holland? But one of the most important things about this young man, I've ignored this for a while, because I felt that much of what was happening around Robert was very similar to the poltergeist experience, which attaches itself very often to young children of a largely troubled family. And I thought it was interesting that he could conjure crop circles and balls of light outside his house. But when people say, why don't you pay more attention to this? I say, well, because quite honestly, outside my own house, I have many crop circles and many balls of light without poor Robert. You know, what he is producing in his own home is kind of interesting, but we've got a phenomenon here without him. That view changed over the last few months when he started to be visited by and communicate with beings, which obviously triggered my interest. But most important of all, he took a photograph. He was told that he would be able to take a photograph. Now,
of the light phenomena.
No.
Oh,
of a being.
Of a being. Oh.
And there is a photograph.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's breathtaking. I'll tell you where you can find it.
Oh, please.
On the BLT website. BLT. Burke, Levengood, Talbot.
Okay. So Nancy, if I search for Nancy Talbot, I should find. Oh, that's fantastic. And
there's a photograph, not the best photograph in the world, of a cream-coloured being with large brown eyes in his living room.
Yeah.
This is pretty shattering.
Yeah.
Now, simultaneously, do you know about the 11 Mexican...
Yeah, I was just going to ask you this, if this ties in.
You see, what happened with this, which is unique, is that there is information going around that this squadron of 11 UFOs switched off their cloaking mechanism. They said, okay, let them see us. So that, there have always been vague images of UFOs, but this was crystal clear. And the idea that they are decloaking themselves, they're removing the shields, the idea that one being can allow himself to be photographed and videoed with Robert, and the idea that a squadron over Mexico will allow themselves to be photographed is, I think, a very interesting step on the way.
When you say, because I only heard that they caught them on infrared, but you now say that they also had visual contact, because I have not heard that. So but this was not in the press, obviously.
I believe they've got video film.
Okay. But because also there was quite all around the world, actually, apart from the USA, there was quite extended covering of this, but not only of the infrared, which is astonishing enough. I mean,
I think the key to it is that whatever they allow us to see, it is not all there is, and what there is not a function of the accident of who had a camera to hand and who had a video. What there is a function of decisions made up there about just how visible they presume humanity, just how visible they should be for humanity's current position and state. So I think they are judging that we are starting to be ready to see more. And 2004 has been a little hinge point in this in this trajectory. I think we're going to see more and more of this now.
There was also an incident, I think, in Portugal, am I right? Of about the same flavor, if I remember correctly. There also the military had footage.
I don't know, but I think it's now going to be a cascade.
I mean, I think this is a very important point in history, because as far as I remember, this is the first time that a official military, and I think it was also generals that were quoted, is admitting that
There's something else going on which is very interesting. That people say, "Oh, the world is terrible, the Middle East, genocides, the Iraqi war, the corruption in America, loss of freedom, blah, blah, blah." But again, I would say the brighter the light, the blacker the shadow. And there is an argument that 9/11, the Iraq war, the Middle East situation are part of a gigantic iron mechanism controlling events, and that it's clonking around whether we like it or not. Now, I would point out to you that at the end of July, the American Supreme Court ruled that Guantanamo Bay was not legal.
Surprise?
Surprise? Well, it's surprising that the Supreme Court,
That's true.
within 2 days, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that the barrier wall was not legal.
Oh, I heard, yes, that's right.
Within 2 days. Now, in our mindset, we say, "Oh, well, coincidence." But I think it's not coincidence. I believe that just as 9/11, the Iraq war, blah, 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 were moves by the dark side, so there will be countervailing measures by the light. And it's going to be a battle, but it's going to be interesting.
So we really are in this war between good and evil, as George W. Bush quoted, said?
Yeah.
Some people think that the wars, like Vietnam War and other wars, are actually fought to be a distraction. Do you think that this...
Yeah. I think certainly so, yeah.
So it's not really about oil, it's just to make people look the other way.
I think it's about both. And I think what we're seeing in America and here in England is the biggest, most spurious and superficial gift that our governments have ever been offered. Is this nonsensical war on terror, which they're promoting and exaggerating. You can't believe, there will be an attack on Heathrow Airport. Move the tanks onto Heathrow Airport.
I've been on Heathrow on that day when they did move the tanks there.
Did anything happen? Shit, no.
But that's because they moved the tanks there.
Nah. And now they're saying that we have hard information that there are going to be attacks on federal buildings. There won't be an attack on a federal building, come on. There is an attack on the consciousness of the American people. That's the attack. But that's all spurious politics.
So, just to give an outlook now, moving back a little bit to our original subjects, which were crop circles, but which obviously do tie into a bigger picture, which is actually even more interesting. Where do you think the phenomena is taking us, and how do you think that crop circles influence us? How do they contribute to us easing down the ship?
They stretch our consciousness. They stretch us into I mean, I knew nothing about most of the things I now study before. I mean, I went through architecture school. I was a professor of architecture in California. I knew nothing about geometry and number and design before this. This is what has amplified my understanding of things. I think the crop circle phenomenon is a very, very knowing curriculum, a curriculum of education, and it's brilliantly engineered, very, very clever, and its function is really to very, very gently and unthreateningly plant little seeds on planet Earth, and these seeds spread.
How is information transported? By looking at them, by going in them, or just because they're there?
All three. All three.
So even people who are not into crop circles at all are actually influenced by the phenomena, you think?
Yes, I do. I think that it's now been going on for nearly 20 years, and it will carry on, but it spreads like a virus. And even around here, where, you know, very grounded farmers and country people are becoming year by year just a little more astonished, a little more bewildered by this, a little more respectful of it.
Now, I was going to ask, what is going to be the future development? Obviously, you have predicted in the phenomenon. One thing that cropped up, I don't know if you want to comment about it, are formations in the sky. So, can you say anything about this?
I mean,
I think this is fascinating.
There is a phenomenon called hole punch clouds. And these are circles in the cloud offering a vision of the blue. Within the circle is a heart, and this repeats and repeats and repeats in America and in Australia. And what is so interesting and says so much about our species is that if you go onto Google or another search engine and look this up, you will find many people who talk about ice droplets from passing planes causing a precipitation and a lot of spurious blah 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 blah. Nobody ever says, huh? They're heart-shaped. On the whole Google stuff that you bring up, everyone will speak about frozen air and convection currents and things. Nobody mentions that they are consistently the shape of a heart, let alone how you might form a heart in the clouds. Now, going to a kind of medieval faith-based cosmology, if God was up there and was saying, hey, you guys down there, you need to love a bit more. You need to think about your hearts. What could you better do? Take advertising space on TV or get the headlines of newspapers saying, God says think about your hearts, love more. No, but hearts in the sky? I mean, it is so poignant that these things occur. They are not in the papers. Nobody notices. Hearts in the sky? Can you believe this?
There were also some heart-shaped crop circles this year. I have seen them.
Fake.
Oh. Well, thank you very much for this. This was a very fascinating.
Good. I hope it was helpful.
Oh, I'm sure. And, well, maybe we can repeat this sometime in the future.
Whenever you want.
Thank you very much.
As long as I'm not recalled to Alpha Centauri.
All right. But shortly before you go, maybe you could drop me a line just to say goodbye.